My name is Jimmy Maxwell, and I'm chatting with Staxx.
Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Jimmy Maxwell. All right, so tell me about when you first seen the cameras coming into prison for Lockup, the show Lockup.
They just came and got me out of my cell, and said, "Hey, man, you some people that want to talk to you." So they took me down. I was actually in the county jail from that last escape, and they pulled me down to some little interview room, and that's when I seen the cameras and all this stuff going on, and the lady Susan, I think her name was.
Yeah, I think her name's Susan.
Yeah.
She
said, "Are you?" She asked me if I was interested in doing this. To be honest, I really wasn't at that time, but she started telling me, because they'd been kind of following my son. He was I told you he'd gotten in that trouble. Yeah. And he was at the other end of the jail. He was in lockup too, but they wouldn't let us together because this is the way Oklahoma is. And she's like, "Well, how long has it been since you saw your son?" And it had been a few years. And I knew he was in trouble, and I knew that they would not let us together anytime soon. She told me that, we might be able to make arrangements for you to be able to see your son, if you're willing to do this little interview. And I said, "Well, just depends on what you want to talk about, So I agreed to do it, under those conditions, and then we took off from there. It was surreal, if I'm not gonna lie.
How long were you doing at that time? You were waiting for an escape charge. How did you escape that time?
Well, it wasn't that big a deal. It was a lower security, but they I tore my shoulder out of the socket, scaling a fence. Well, I didn't, not scaling it, but falling off the damn thing. And I'm a hard headed, and I just refused to give up. Once, and I had all my federal time behind me still, when getting where I was at was the real escape. Getting to where I was able to escape was the real deal. But I mean, it was, it still had fences and whatnot, and all that, but it wasn't as high as security as some of the other places. But when I knocked my shoulder out of the socket, it changed everything. When I got up and I took off, and I had to hold my arm over my head because when your arm is out of the socket, it's very heavy. It's very heavy. It hangs down to it hangs past your damn knee. Because it was literally all the way out of the socket, not halfway. It was completely out, and so I'm holding it over my head with my, by my fingers and stuff. And I made it.
You're running like this?
Yes, and I'm crossing fences like that. I can't let go of it at all, because as soon as I do, there's nothing holding it in. The bones are not inside, and so I'm ripping my pants and crossing over the barbed wire fences and stuff. And then I finally make it to almost to the highway, which there's cops sitting up on the hill. I can see their lights, but it's still foggy, luckily. But the fog was lifting, and I knew I didn't have any time left. So I had a gray coat on, and I just took off walking across this low part of the field, and I managed to get across it before the fog lifted. And then by the time I got next to the highway, it had completely cleared. And I'm laying in a little ditch with the highway right beside me, but I'm away from the prison enough that, honestly, I didn't know what the fuck I was going to do. I had a cell phone with me though, and I called the guy that was supposed to come get me. And I told him what the situation was. And he's like, are they after you right now? You know what I mean? I should have known then that he's going to get flaky on me. But in the end, he said he was going to come, and I laid in that ditch and I thought about what I was going to do, with my arm being out of the socket. I couldn't, I was going to have to get it put back in the socket somewhere. And I can't, you can't go to the doctor, you can't go to the hospital. It's not, it's just not going to work out. And
There's
so
no
I
way
thought
to
about
push it. There's no way to push it back in. Like,
it was completely out of the socket. I mean, completely out. It was actually this shoulder. And I'm like, so I was actually running like this. And when I was laying in that ditch, I'm like, how would a doctor put this back together? How would a doctor put it back together? He's just going to knock you out, and then he's going to jerk that thing back into place. So I put like I said, my arm was longer than it normally would be because the shoulder was down here, and so I put my hand around my foot and my other hand over my hand, and I pressed my feet. And stretched it as, and honestly, I didn't think it was going to go back in. I just didn't know what I was going to do. There's no way I'm going to turn myself in. There's just no way I could give up. And I'm still facing all this federal time. What I mean? This is my only chance to not have to do this big federal case I got left, which was a 18 and a half years, deal. But it was running concurrent with my state time, which I had done a few years on, but it was still a big old chunk of time. You look at that almost got away with it episode and they say, well, he had 3 years left. Well, that was not true. I had 3 years left of that state sentence, but I had all this other, I had 18 years left of the federal sentence. So
yeah, so that's like 22 years.
Yeah. So I'm not, well, it was running concurrent, but still that leaves me, 15 years left, and I'm not wanting to do that. I just did 16 and a half before that. I was looking to get away out of this. I was looking to get out of doing that time. And, but it wasn't that big a deal. I didn't worry about correcting them. Shows sometimes they get little things wrong, and what, as long as they're not slandering you, you're all right. It's just what it is. And so, although I did get I saw some stuff, 3 years left. What an idiot, but whatever, just say what you want. But the fact is I had 15 left. So I wasn't trying to give up. That's how important it was, And so I laid there and I pressed until freaking tears squirted out of my eyes. And I thought it wasn't going to happen. I could feel it stretching. I could feel the thing stretching, but I didn't know if I was in the right position for it. But your body wants to go back the way that it's supposed to be. Thank God for that, because that last little push, when I was like almost crying and desperate, and I just pushed, and it sucked back into where it's supposed to go, went thump, thump. And I felt it slide back in there, and I actually had some control of it. I was like, oh my God.
Wait, so you pulled on your arm?
I pulled it. I had it
with your leg.
I had on my foot, and my arm was this much longer than it's supposed to be because it was out and down here. So I was able to get it around my, hold on to the bottom of my foot and grab it with this other hand and just press it. And at some point in time, it went back in, and I was so relieved. I mean, it just changed everything. I knew that I could get away then. I knew that we were going to make it, or I believed I was, and so it was it was such a relief. And I still couldn't really use it. Don't get me wrong. It was still fucked up, but now I could hold it down here. It was back where it's supposed to be. The weight of your arm, believe it or not, when it's all the way out of the socket, is horrendous. It is something that you can't bear. That's why I had to have it over my head.
Yeah,
because it's not bearable to just hang it. the weight. But so anyway, it's back in, and I spotted a way to kind of like get to the tree line. And I told the guy on the phone when I was laying in the ditch, I still hadn't had my shoulder back in yet. I told him, look, I'm going to figure out what to do, and I'm going to try to get to this tree line I see down the road about half mile, quarter mile, and it kind of veers in towards the highway a little closer instead of this big wide area of bare ground. And so I made for that. And then I got down there and I realized it was because a creek went underneath the road, and so I got on, I went through the culvert all the way to the other side of the highway. And I got on the side and I called him, and that son of a bitch didn't answer. And he didn't answer, and I only had so much stuff on charge on my phone. So at that point, I called my stepdaughter, and she just dropped everything, came and got me. She made her boyfriend actually drive his car and come get me.
So you get away. You get away.
I got away from that place, but I didn't get away for very long because, what I didn't anticipate was they had been looking for me. They had chased me for months. And, the months when, that one episode where, that I had the motorcycle wreck and all that stuff, and I'm running through the woods. That was actually, they chased me for months with that, the fugitive task force. And so as soon as they found out that I had made it to a low and that I had escaped, they just blew their top. They're like, I had no idea. It was going to be that big a deal. And so I get back, and obviously I can't go where I was planning on going. And I got my arm in a sling. And, my daughter's like, well, you can go over here into my place. And I'm like, no, I can't. There's no way in hell I can go over there. That's the first place they're going to look at. And she's like, no, they're not. They don't know. Nobody know where I live. I just got this place. And her boyfriend's like, yeah, it's in my name, da-da-da. And I thought, well, I can probably go there for a couple of hours, and get some clothes and, take a bath and eat and get focused on where I'm going. And so to reevaluate my situation. So I go there, which is obviously a big mistake. Everybody, we all can see that coming. So I wake up, I take a bath and I wash up. My arm is still in a lot of pain, and I'm laying there, and I wake up, and to her coming into the room with the phone, I got some bros on the phone calling me, and they're like, turn the fucking TV on. And I turn the TV on, and I'm blasted all over every channel. And I realized then my mistake, and it's so I'm like, I got to get out of here right now. I got to leave right now. And luckily, and I did. So I ended up with the guy coming over to get me, and I just made it out. Somehow I asked my daughter, I started quizzing her about, who's been to her apartment, who did, I'm looking for leaks. And, I saw a couple that they didn't really see. And I'm like, so, anyway, we're getting out of there. But as we leave, I see there's some strange going on in the parking lot, but nobody stops me. And as we drive off, I can see nobody following us because we had to drive out of there and drive around a big field and drive it. And then we turn the corner and there's nobody behind us. Nobody jumped. Nobody's a block away or half a block away. And so I'm like, I'm about to be damned. I'll be damned. We've got away from that. And I'm going to a motel then across town, completely way across town, almost out of town, so that I can hit the woods if I had to. And as we pulled over to get some clothes and some stuff, and on the west side of Tulsa, and even the guy driving, I'm feeling relaxed at this point. I'm like, I'll be damned. I made this. I handed them back that last 15 years,
Yeah.
And, so I wasn't, all the way up to that point, I'm afraid to be cocky about it, you know what I mean? Because being cocky has never worked out for me, you know what I mean? As soon as I start getting a little full of myself, something smacks me down,
What is it, about 24 hours past since
This
you
is now,
left?
I'm about 12 hours into this at this point. And, or maybe more, a little bit more, but it's, but my driver tells me, God damn, I know there sure is a lot of blacked out windows, you know what I mean, and tinted windows and stuff, and I'm thinking, man, this dude's just, you know what I mean, I don't even do and stuff, so I finally relaxed, you know what I mean, I don't mess with that stuff and nothing, so I don't on the paranoid thing, and I'm just assuming that he is, you know what I mean, and because I don't even see it, you know what I mean, and anyway, we're back on the highway again, and we're cruising, and I'm really thinking, okay, man, you know what I mean? I'm starting to make plans of what I'm going to do, and I'm going to change my hair color, and I'm going to do this and that, and all of a sudden he hits the brakes, and he's like, what the f-? And I look over at him, and he's looking at the rearview mirror, and I see something up ahead of us, you know what I mean? And there's red and blue lights ahead of us, and there's a line of them behind us.